Welcome back, everyone, to Diary of an Empath. I'm super excited. Today's guest is Angela Jia Kim. She is the founder of the brand Savor Beauty and the author of the book Radical Radiance. Her approach to skincare took the industry by storm, and I think that the story is going to surprise you guys with this. So, Angela, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here with you.
So I like to start off with childhood because I feel like that shapes who we are. It shapes a lot of our environment, how we view the world, and sometimes shapes what routes we take in life. So for you, what was your upbringing like? Because I know that you came from like an Asian American background. You lived in Iowa from what I was reading. Did that
Yes.
present any challenges for you growing up?
Well, first of all, my parents are Korean, so I grew up in a predominantly white town, Caucasians, and so it really was a blessing and it was challenging all at the same time. And I say it was a blessing because out of all the challenges, I really believe it shaped who I am today, which I'm so grateful for. I was made, my sisters and I and my family, my mom and dad were made fun of for being, quote, chink, or my dad didn't have the perfect accent, so people would make fun of him, and my mom as well. So that was in the environment in which I grew up. But I'm so grateful for that because I learned at a very early age to forge my own path. And so I was a little concert pianist. My parents started me on piano, and my dad was a workaholic. I would wake up in the middle of the night and he would be working at 4 a.m. And Carice, I would just literally just go and stare at him because he was a math professor and he'd be doing math equations and grading papers and working really hard at 4 in the morning. So I would watch that. And I grew up watching my mom, who's, again, she's Korean, and Korean women they love their beauty rituals. She was more in the self-care, massaging her face and putting on this toner so that her skin was so glistening and gorgeous. So I grew up with, self-care and this work ethic that I think really shaped me. And then along with the racism that I experienced early on, I just think it shaped me to become this entrepreneur.
And I was reading that your dad passed away at a young age. How did that impact you? Did that change your environment after that happened?
Totally, because we were no longer financially stable, and I was very concerned about my mom. And she's raising three teenage girls on her own in Iowa, in a foreign country,
Mm.
and I just have so much respect for her ability to bring up three very strong girls, that became accomplished in our own right. So I tip my hat off to her, but it really changed things when you no longer feel safe and you feel like I was the oldest of the three. And when you feel like you have to be the dad and the mom, because my mom was sort of, she was just lost, and I think she fell into her own, she was scared, in this foreign country, and can she do this on her own? So me being the native English speaking person, being the oldest, I felt like I really had to shoulder a lot of the responsibility. And again, there are many nights when I cried myself to sleep, and I had to overcome a lot of fears throughout my adulthood of abandonment. I think when you lose a parent very suddenly at an early age, you are always scared that you will lose the ones that you love. So, but the responsibility and, the fear of abandonment, all of that, again, has shaped me to be who I am. So I'm so grateful for that. I'm able to run a business here in New York City, and I'm used to the responsibility. I don't know a lot of people a lot of my friends are often like, oh my God, how do you handle so much stress? How do you, you're responsible for a lot of people's livelihoods. And, there's a lot of, I will say there's a lot of stressful situations, but it's just sort of the way I'm used to it and I can handle it.
You talked about your dad and watching him stay up super late and having that drive. Do you feel like there's a correlation with, because I hear you talking and it's like you sound like you have this drive that not a lot of people have, because given your circumstances, living in an environment that, had racism, had its challenges, you could have took a totally different route and you didn't. Do you feel like watching your dad and seeing his work ethic impacted your work ethic?
Definitely. I mean, it's we could unpack that for days, like watching him work so hard. And he comes from an extremely accomplished family. His grandfather moved, or sorry, his father moved to the United States when he was 27 years old and became an accomplished English writer. I don't know if
Wow.
from Korea, learning a new foreign language and then becoming, it would be like me moving to France when I'm 27 and then becoming a celebrated French writer. Like it's,
Hmm.
you don't get there just by watching Netflix. You really
Right.
work, right? And his great uncle was like the ambassador from Korea to the United States during the Reagan and Carter administration. So he came from a lineage that worked very, very hard, and so that's plain and simple. I inherited workaholism, where I would wake up very early, 6 in the morning, and I'd be working until 11 o'clock at night. And that led to severe burnout, and although it helped me to accomplish a lot of things, it was like I could manifest whatever I wanted to, but at what cost? At
Yes.
my health cost, at my happiness. It cost my happiness. Um, I I was working way too hard, and I was building a business in one of the hardest cities, challenging cities in the world, New York City. So it led to burnout. It led to panic attacks. It led to a lot of hives, a lot of skin issues. Um, the business I keep talking about is Savor Beauty. It's a natural skincare brand inspired by Korean beauty rituals. And thank God I grew up with my mom. Speaking of our childhood, right? She was into the self care rituals. So I grew up watching her put layer love onto her skin. And that's the premise and the foundation and the philosophy of Savor Beauty. So I have started to teach women that when you nourish yourself through self love, self care, you actually radiate a gorgeous authenticity that permeates into every aspect of your life. And you can manifest. Yes, work is beautiful, but you can manifest in a much more easeful way. And so I have a planner called Savor Beauty Self Care Planner. It's a 90-day planner, and the first page says self care first. And when you take care of yourself, you can give from a cup that overflows. And I wrote a book that I sent to you, Carice,
Yes.
called
Yeah.
Radical Radiance.
Yes. Can't wait
And
to read it.
yeah. And it's just my journey of
Hmm.
it's 12 weeks of self love rituals to manifest abundance, beauty, and joy. Because I believe so much that we women, we are meant to express so much of our soul and creativity, and that we deserve the abundance. We deserve the beauty and the joy that we want and crave for in our life. And it does take work, which is beautiful, but also equal amounts of self care and self love. Does
I
that
love
make sense?
that.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's it's so beautiful and so true on so many levels. And but what I was reading, what I found very interesting with you is that you weren't always into the beauty industry. You were a pianist. So how did you make this transition to being a concert pianist to now getting into this beauty industry and having this passion to help other women? Where did that transition happen and how did it happen?
Well, I guess you're right. I forgot about that. I was a concert pianist. I was touring sometimes 8,000 miles a month. And so it was a very lonely endeavor, although I was very passionate about it. And I felt like it was such a privilege to go to all these towns, small towns in America, and perform and
Wow.
give them the gift of music. I felt so privileged and honored to do that. And then one day I was about to walk out on stage and I put on this quote, natural lotion all over my body and started breaking out into these hives in front of hundreds of people. And I was so humiliated, Carice. I
Mm,
mean, imagine you break out, you have one pimple, and how
right.
subconscious you feel. And I was breaking out in front of hundreds. And so I took a look at the list of ingredients after the concert and was really shocked to find out how many chemicals there were.
Hmm.
So I decided to do a lot of research, and I learned about parabens, and I learned about formaldehyde and all these preservatives that are carcinogenic and not good for you. They're toxic for your skin and for your bloodstream. So just I started making my own lotions and potions in my kitchen as a hobby, and I started doing my own research, years ago. And it was such a spiritually healing thing for me. Not, it was spiritually healing, and it was also very healing for my skin as well, because for once in my life, I was able to make mistakes without any consequences. Because you had asked, what was it like growing up in Iowa and these Korean, very strict parents, and now as a concert pianist, and I had a very, very strict teachers. You weren't allowed to make mistakes on stage, Grace.
Mm.
It
It's a lot of
was
pressure.
a lot of pressure. So for once I was alone and I could make mistakes, and I was so happy. Like, I felt like, oh, I can fail, and my soul is not on the line,
Mhm.
and my self-worth was not on the line. So it was very spiritually healing to then just have fun for the first time in
Mhm.
my life. And experiment. And every day, this is where my discipline kicked in. Every day I would wake up and I'd say, well, I mixed oil and butter together, and that was pretty gross. So let me see if I put coconut oil with lavender essential oil, what would that be like? And then I was like, oh, that smells so good. It smells like coconut lavender. Now, what if I put in something that's a little bit more nourishing for my skin, like shea butter? Oh, that felt a little heavy. So I just, every day I was experimenting, and I was racking up a lot of money on my credit cards. And then when my friend, one day I gave her, after like 1,000 of these tries, I gave her a lotion, and she came back to me later and she said, oh my God, I love that. Like, it was so healing for my skin. And I gave some to my mom, and she wants to buy 13 gifts for her friends. I was like, really? And she said, yeah. So how much would you charge? And I was like, oh, I'm going to charge money for this. Okay. And from then on, I sort of became this accidental entrepreneur. And that was
I
a
love
very,
that.
yeah, it was a very innocent foray into entrepreneurship. And oh my God, I've learned so much since, and made every single mistake under the stars that you could ever possibly imagine. I've made that mistake. But that was my MBA. It was the School of Hard Knocks.
Sometimes that's how it happens. I feel like the universe will put you on a path that you're supposed to be on so unexpectedly and in the most unexpected ways. And sometimes we fight it because it's like that ego comes in. It's like, I don't know if this is, if my, am I really, is this something I'm supposed to do? Is this something that I'm going to be good at? One thing that I loved and that made your brand and your entrepreneurship very like stick out more than other people that I've seen and that I've interviewed. You mentioned the connection, the soul connection when it comes to skincare and your brand. I would love for you to talk a little bit about that because I've never heard anyone talk about spirituality and skincare. What is that connection for you?
I love that question. So, my mom used to always say to me, treat your skin like the most expensive silk on earth. And so she would say that because she would see me just rubbing my skin with harsh exfoliants made from apricot seeds. When I was very young, I would just buy whatever the drugstore brand there was. And she would say, no, Angia, treat your skin like the most expensive silk on earth. Don't rip it, don't tear it, don't pull it. Treat it nicely. This is how you wash it. And she would really wash her face like it was the most expensive silk on earth. And when I was going through that whole burnout period, I think my daughter was around 5 or 6 years old. And I was just so stressed out. And I felt like I couldn't be the awesome mom that I wanted her to have. And I just, at the end of the night, I was drinking, like 3 glasses of red wine and passing out. And I just was like, this is not treating my soul like the most expensive silk on earth, right? Why I'm treating my skin like the most expensive silk on earth. What about my soul? And what about self-care? And am I caring for myself? And the way I'm caring for my daughter. So that's where the spirituality started to settle in. It was like washing my face became a spiritually grounding ritual at the end of the night. It was not just washing your face. It was smelling the aromas. We have a double cleanse system at Savor Beauty. and we number the line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is step 0 and 1. It's the pre-cleanse, jasmine, coconut oil with the pearl cleansing cream. And so this is a double cleanse system. And so we designed it so that the coconut jasmine pre-cleanse oil smells like a tropical vacation. So you're smelling it and you're massaging your skin very gently. And, even the tips of your fingers when you're washing your face, it's a sensual. Your fingertips are very sensual. And I can say that as a concert pianist. When I would touch the piano, it was like you were putting so much passion and love and massaging the keyboard. Well, you're doing that with your face too, and it smells amazing. It's so grounding, and the coconuts and the jasmine, it's very sensual, sensorial journey. And then you layer on the pearl cleansing cream after, and that smells like a spa in the bottle. And it has these crushed grape seeds that sweep away the toxins that the coconut oil has pulled out from your pores. And you're just like, it smells like a spa in the bottle. So you're feeling relaxed and restored. And then you wash it off, and then you feel reset, and that's how I think we can treat our souls. That's how it becomes spiritually grounding. You reset your skin, you reset your soul as well. So when you go to bed, I used to go to bed with a lot of toxic thoughts. I must do this. I have to do this. And that can give you insomnia. That doesn't give you pure rest, right? But now when I go to bed, I'm really resting. I listen to a beautiful yoga nidra on YouTube. You can get that for free. You just Google it. I'm meditating. I'm enjoying my time with my partner. It's resetting and enjoying the rest, right? So very, I tried to illustrate to you how you can bring skincare into the spiritual realm. And, if I back out a little bit and answer your question in a more holistic way about business, building business in a spiritual way, I call it the spiritual 7 figures. How do you learn from your mistakes and make every single mistake count? And you examine the mistake. Like, why? Because personal growth is business growth, and business growth is personal growth for an entrepreneur. So even when I'm interacting with an employee and I feel challenged or I feel resistance from them or me, I'm realizing that we're both trying to grow. And what's deeper in there? Is it really about the hours and clocking in and clocking out? Or is it being impeccable with your time? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of lessons that we can learn, and I'm always learning on a daily basis. And I love the women in my company because they challenge me on so many levels. But numbers also, it's an energetic thing. It's a spiritual thing. So I don't know. I view business building as spiritual growth as well.
I love that. And I love the connections with that. I want to ask you a deep question, and I have to read it because I wrote it down because I feel like this is kind of like a question you got to think about, but I think it's going to be a good one for you. So as the founder and the owner of Savor Beauty, how do you see the relationship between self-care, beauty, and oneself of identity? And how does this perspective influence the development and the philosophy behind your brand?
Okay. So let me unpack that for 1 second. What is the correlation between self-care, beauty, and repeat that last part? That was really deep and beautiful.
It was, yeah. So how would you see the relationship between self-care, beauty, and one self of identity? So how do you correlate those, and how does that influence the development behind your brand?
Okay. So let me first start this. I identify very deeply with the Savor Beauty brand, and I believe that the energy trickles from the top. So this is why what I'm about to tell you is what I identify with Savor Beauty. So I really believe that we have an inner essence that makes us authentically gorgeous. And I also believe, though, the wiser I get as I gain wisdom years, as I say, I'm realizing that our authentic beauty radiates into every part of our lives and creates this magnetic force to manifest abundance, beauty, and joy. And it's a magnetic force for radiance. It's magical. It's joyful. And when we can radiate it from every pore, our brilliance shines through. So I know that sounds beautiful and glowing, right? But if I'm to break it down a little bit into how do we apply this practically into our lives, it's through self-care rituals. And self-care for me is an action for which your future self will thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So nourish yourself through meditation, through breathing, taking that, when you inhale what you need. And when you exhale, which is very challenging for me and for a lot of people, when you exhale, you let go of what you no longer need or want in your life. And that very action, if you understand the profundity, sometimes I make up words, but that sounds like a real word, profundity
Sounds
of,
like it.
of inhale and exhale, what you need and what you no longer need. Um, you become much more conscious with it, and you can bring it deeper into your life through meditation, through yoga, and then through practices of self-care. And so that, in Radical Radiance, my book, I have 52 rituals for self-care and self-love. Some of them being washing your face, some of them being taking self-care sabbaticals, some of them being what I call radiance retreats, where you go, on a vacation, either with yourself or with others, and it's a tech free, right? Where you're just going to immerse yourself, appreciate and savor whatever activity you're doing, getting a massage, going into the forest for forest bathing, a walk, spending time with your dog, spending time with your cat, spending time with your loved ones, your family, whatever it is that you choose to do, but being fully present and appreciating and feeling immense gratitude for it. These are ways that you can plug into your authenticity and, the beauty of your inner essence. And then the self-care rituals radiating from the inside out. I think that that's how, for me, Savor Beauty, that's what I want it to be, for a vehicle for other people. I don't know if that answers your
Oh, it
question.
does. And that, that's why I asked you that question, because I noticed that with your brand. It feels like it's not just about skincare products. There's lots of them out there, but it's about really radiating that self-love from within. I see so much of how, when you talked about your mom and the rituals that you would see her do and her self practices and her self-love with skincare, I can see how, that even transforms into your brand and who you are. Cause I feel like skincare too, it can change who you are as a person. For me, it did. Like when I started focusing on like my skincare, taking care of myself, and just doing these little things that were for me and for no one else around me, because I'm always doing everything for everyone else. And when I
Mm-hmm.
finally started doing these things for me, it just kind of changed who I am. It gave me this like confidence and this vibration that I didn't have before. And it even started changing my definition of success within myself. For you, going through this journey of, from being a pianist to starting this amazing brand, has your definition of success changed over the years?
Okay, so definitely. I want to
Hmm.
back up a little bit because I would love to, if you don't mind, talk about my mom and the beauty
Yes.
of my mom for a second to answer your question. So when I saw her when I was very young and my dad was alive, and she was very vibrant. She was an accomplished little entrepreneur on her own. She was a piano teacher. She had opened up a piano studio in the basement of our home in Ames, Iowa. And she was very confident. And even though this was a foreign country for her, she started like a music festival. And I remember sitting in the audience, and she had invited like these piano teachers to come into our little town, and I would watch her talking on stage, and I thought, oh, that's my mom. And she's just so, I just loved seeing her take care of herself and just be a mom and be confident. And then when my dad passed away, I just saw how her spirit wilted and her confidence wilted.
Mm.
And I wanted so much for her to take care of herself. And I remember feeling frustrated because I didn't know how to give her that confidence. I was just a teenager, so I didn't know how to help her, through those really tough years. And so I tried to start a business for her. I remember it was called something like Decadent Delights. even for the discriminating Cookie Monster. I think I started that. And it was my sister and me. And I said, Mom, you know how to bake cookies and cook coffee cakes. So I'm really concerned, like when we go to college, how are you going to take care of yourself? And so I just started this business for her. I went to the public library and I looked up all these recipes and I started baking for her, and I made menus, and we went to the college town, and I just started pitching all these, I started pitching these cafes, and someone ordered cookies from us, and I stayed up all night long, and I, baked cookies and I delivered it to them. And I was just trying to launch a small little business for her so that she could take care of herself. And I remember coming home, and she was just looked at me, and she was so depressed. And she said, oh, Angia, you just raised my electricity bill with the oven, and she was just, we didn't know how to help each other in that moment,
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped the business. That was the last cookie delivery I ever gave in my entire life. It was the shortest lived business probably ever. And today, I really believe that that's why I'm so passionate about women taking care of themselves financially. Because I think it's really important that we, this is where my dad's work ethic comes in. But my mom's self-care, there needs to be a yin and yang balance. I really don't go as crazy as I did and become a workaholic, but also I want my daughter, I want your daughter, I want all of us to find what makes our soul sing and become abundant from it. And I want us to be of service and understand that by nourishing ourselves, we can nourish others as well. And that if we view our careers and if we view our work in that vein, it becomes a very beautiful and powerful thing. That self-care feeds into self-love, that feeds into work, that feeds into, this beautiful energetic cycle of abundance, right? And that is my definition of success today. I want to go back and I want to heal my mom, and I want her to feel abundant and not worried financially. And I don't want her to feel scared about having to raise these 3 girls on her own without the support of a husband or that extra income. So I want that for all women, all people, but I want that to be a powerful statement and not a stressed out, I have to work thing, but rather that we think of it in a different way, right? Self-care plus service is gorgeous.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. And I love that connection that you clearly have all of these things from, your parents and your cultural background that have influenced you. How has your cultural background being Korean, because, Korean skincare we know is like phenomenal. Koreans really
Right.
value their skin. How has that cultural background influenced your brand and what you've done with your career and how you see your brand going in the future?
I love your questions, Carice. They're so deep.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I'm going to tie back to what you were talking about, how you felt like Savor Beauty is deeper with its mission. And so the Korean beauty industry is this billion-dollar industry, and it's they sell masks and creams and serums, and so does Savor Beauty. But what I love about Korean ancient rituals is, there's a saying called "as above, so below," and "so below as above." Have you heard that saying?
I haven't. But
So
it sounds really, really deep. I got to think about that one for a second.
basically, what it means is that everything is inextricably intertwined,
Mm,
and so everything is interconnected, right? And in ancient Korean times, they believed that the body and spirit were just one. And it was believed that like your happiness is reflected on your face and your bodies. And so to me, when I read this, when I was digging for the historical significance of beauty in the Korean history, I thought, well, this explains why Korean women, they've been working on their skin's radiance from as far back as 8918, I think it
wow.
was. And, they were using natural concoctions from safflower, apricots, peach oils, and they wanted to use it to remove age spots and to have this gorgeous glossy sheen on their skin. That was, 8918. And to this day, it's very important for Korean women. So I just think that like that pulling that into our products today, like we use safflower oils as an homage to this gorgeous, beautiful, Korean heritage. It's a nod to my culture.
I love that. It's beautiful. And man, Koreans have some of the best skin ever. And I say that with love because I'm like, man, that is when I was started working on my skincare. That's what inspired me. I was watching all of these videos on these Korean women and what they were doing with their skin. I'm like, how can I improve my skin to look like that? And I truly say this, that when I'm 37 now and I didn't start working on my skincare until probably about age 30, and my mom's an esthetician. So she's like, you need to do this. You need to do it's free for you. Why aren't you doing these things? And when I started doing it and I started seeing the improvements, I have never felt beautiful without makeup. Honestly, I was always so like, even though I didn't feel like I was an ugly person or anything like that, I just didn't feel confident. When I started working on my skin, I really mean this, where it just made me feel so much different about myself. Like I can go to the store without makeup. I feel so confident without makeup that I actually don't wear it very often. I wear less of it. And it just changed who I am as a person. It made me more confident with other people. It made me more confident with other relationships. And it just kind of made me value my spirit more. And like you, what I love about how you said it's like connection with even like a mindfulness practice. My routine every day and every night starts with my skin. It starts with myself. Before I pick up my phone, before I start introducing my energy to the world and inviting energy into my space, I work on myself first. I would love to hear for you, what does your morning routine look like? What do you do in the morning and what are your steps?
Well, Carice, first of all, I should tell you that your skin is gorgeous.
Thank
You are
you.
radiant. And I love what you just said about how basically you're saying you just love the skin you're in now.
Yes.
And that has
Yes.
a lot of depth to it. That's not just, it goes way deeper than just your skin, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And there's nothing like more wonderful than just waking up and just feeling good in your skin, right? And feeling gorgeous from the get go. My morning ritual, to answer your question, is I wake up just like you. It's the first thing that I do before, as you said, I introduce my energy to the world. I love that. I'm going to use that from now on. Um, so I go to the bathroom and I brush my teeth, wash my face, just splash some cold water on, and then I mist my face and I put on either our raspberry serum, which has tons of antioxidants, or I put on the pumpkin seed oil, which is great for hyperpigmentation and age spots. So it's got a lot of zinc for healing. So I'll put one of those, and I'll massage one of those serums onto my face. The mist is really helps me to cleanse the pores, and my skin is dry, so it drinks up all of this nourishing goodness and vitamins and minerals. And then I just feel glowing. And then I come and I do yoga, kundalini yoga, in the living room.
I love that. And so for if you have to think of like any Korean ritual when it comes to skincare, if you had to name like the number one tip that you would say, you have to incorporate this into your daily routine, what would that be?
Well, I would say it depends on your skin type. I think right now what I'm enjoying so much is massaging beauty oils onto my face. It's winter here in New
Mm.
York City, so it's very dry. And 2 or 3 times a day, I'm massaging like either the raspberry or pumpkin seed oil, which I think we sent you the pumpkin seed
Yes,
oil.
I think it's the rose one, right? I think there was like a rose center. It smelled so good, by the
Oh,
way.
okay, wonderful. So
Loving it.
maybe we sent you the carrot rose, which is our natural retinol for skin renewal. And just massaging it onto your face so that you're glowing. And a lot of people who have oily skin, they think, I just want them to rethink. There's moisturizing their face, because a lot of people with oily skin say, oh, I shouldn't put any creams or oils onto my face. You just want non-clogging oils, and um, you still need nourishing vitamins and minerals. So what I always say is you can take a toning mist. We obviously at Savor Beauty, we have a toning mist, and then you take like one drop, like a little pump of the one of the serums, and then mist it 2 or 3 times. massage it between your hands and then massage it onto your face. And it's more like a hydrating floral water, which still gives you that radiance and hydration that you need, but it doesn't clog the pores.
I love that. So there's something for everyone, which I think that is like a big message for people who think that they can't use products or that there's no hope for them. There is hope for any skin type. And I feel like even just doing these little things for yourself, it's just good self-care practice. And I love that your brand represents that. You talked a little bit earlier about manifestation and abundance. What is your definition of manifestation, and what kind of manifestation practices do you use in your life?
Oh, you ask such delicious, juicy questions. I love it. Well, I used to think that manifesting was to create a life you love, which I still think is beautiful. But now I'm realizing that manifesting is to radiate a desired feeling,
Mm.
and a this comes from somebody who used to work so hard to manifest whatever she wanted at the cost of her health and happiness. And then I would get the prize. I would manifest whatever I wanted to, whether it was like, oh, I bought my first dream apartment in Manhattan. And then after a couple of months, it's like, oh, what's next?
Mhm.
And I was like, no, this time when I decided to purchase an apartment in New York City, I thought to myself, I'm not aiming to buy a home. I want to have a feeling. I want to radiate desire feeling. I want it to be a place where there's so much love, where I'm making dinners, enjoying morning teas, meditating, laughing, dancing. That was my feeling, the desired feeling I wanted to radiate. And so I think that's very important, because when you think of it as manifestation, I want to get what I want, then it's very transactional. But when you
Mhm.
say, I want to feel love, you will feel love through all the process. And then when you get it, you will manifest love, 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 and more loving experiences, loving people, love, right? And then you can feel so abundant and fulfilled for the rest of your life at home, right?
I love
Versus now
that.
I need to get another apartment, or now I need another home, right? So that's my definition of manifestation. And in order to do that, what I do is I create a 90-day vision. And a lot of this is in the Savor Beauty self-care planner,
Which is
where,
very beautiful, by the way, because I looked
oh,
through it.
thank
Yeah, and
you.
I was telling you before the show, I'm actually really, really impressed with the journal. So just FYI, we're going to link that for everybody too.
Okay, thank you. Well, the first thing is, in the next 90 days, I want to feel. And I'll just share with you what I wrote. I said, I want to feel inspired, inspiration. And then as I was meditating on that word, something very strong came to me. A message came to me. And you want to hear what it was?
Yes.
Said this what I downloaded was, in order to be inspired, be inspiring to others.
Mm.
So I wrote that down. So I need, in order to do all this, learn, create, give, and teach, and inspire other people. So that's my 90-day vision, and so I meditate on that, and I do what I call a manifestation meditation, where I think of all of the scenarios where I want to be inspired and I want to be inspirational. And I also have a manifest wheel that I outline in the book of 6 different areas in life. And I've created radiance intentions. What do I want to intend for each of these areas of life? And I meditate on that as well. So those are all how I want to feel, radiate a desired feeling, my definition of manifesting.
That's beautiful. And that really just takes the context out of it, because I think a lot of us, we say, okay, I want to get the house. And then, well, we get the house and it's kind of like, now what? I've done it. I want to make this much money. Okay, well, I did. Now what? I want to get the house. Okay, well, I did. Now what? And I never found myself feeling, even still, completely fulfilled. And I'm kind of like at that pivotal point, even in my career, my life right now, where I'm like, all right, well, what's next? Like, what am I doing? Like my podcast, even. I love getting to meet people like you. This is the highlight of getting to do this. I love
Mhm.
hearing messages that, hey, I listened to this episode. Thank you so much. It helped me leave my narcissist ex, or this helped me feel so self-confident when
Mhm.
I did that. But I still find myself at times kind of feeling like, oh, well, what's next? And I haven't really. I love how you say, instead of like manifesting a thing, manifest that feeling. I'm going to try that because I find myself feeling stuck sometimes. And there are a lot of times where I just want to say, like, I'm done. Like, I want my time back. Maybe this isn't worth it. Do I see this going anywhere? Have you ever had a time during your career, you have the successful business, you have the successful brand that's clearly very meaningful to you, but was there ever a time where you just felt like, I can't do this no more? And what stopped you from quitting?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so many times. Even today, there, I mean, not today, but like just in
Mm-hmm.
general, like there are times when I'm just like, well, because that's when you put yourself out there, you're going to feel the resistance and inertia. And it's just human. And if we all just realize that that's just part of life, I think we would be less apt to give up. Just knowing that the ups and downs are inevitable, and there are going to be days when you do feel like quitting. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should quit. You're allowed to feel that you want to quit, and you're allowed to feel like your life is just down in the dumps and that you hate everyone and everything in it. Like that's just normal and human. And let's just accept that that's going to be part of life. But I say, make decisions when you feel love, because that's when you know it's the right decision. So
Mm-hmm.
don't, if you have a podcast and you're just like, well, this is worth it. So much work finding guests and so much work recording. And it's so much, it
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of work getting it out there. Well, you would make that decision when you feel the love for your podcast, the love for your audience, and you just know it's time to move on. And it's not giving up. It's just you are now evolving into a new sector of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's even, my ex-husband and I, we decided to go on our separate ways, and I think we did it out of love for our daughter, love for each other. Actually, you deserve to be happier than this, and I deserve to be
Mm-hmm.
happier than that. And I think when you really can end things on a note and from a place of love, it's the right decision.
I love that. Yeah.
And I'm
And
not saying, by the way, because you talked about, readers sending you a note that says, thank you so much. Your podcast helped me to leave a narcissistic relationship. I'm not saying that like everybody and every situation needs to be kumbaya,
mm-hmm.
because there are some times when, anger is love, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
your anger is, we got to make an action because we love you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that too. So I don't want anyone to mistake it as we got to feel kumbaya, meditative kind of feelings, because anger has its place too,
I
you
agree.
know?
And that's great advice. And for you, you've clearly made so much impact on your community, your culture, your brand, your skincare, women in general. How do you balance your energy? How do you balance that entrepreneurial side that, you saw your dad work super hard. You clearly have a lot of the similar work ethics. How do you keep that balance? Because you've been there before where you felt burnout.
Mhm.
How do you
Mhm.
prevent yourself from going back into that space?
You know what I think is really beautiful about human beings is we've got these emotions, right? And so there's the positive emotions, and then there's not so positive emotions. And so I think the not so positive emotions are wonderful because they tell you, they're data points to tell you when things are out of bounds and out of balance. So when I start to feel irritated, tired, overwhelmed, upset, I know that there's something out of balance and I need to bring it back into balance. So at the end of 2022, I was just feeling so tired and overwhelmed, and I was getting irritable at a faster rate, right? Impatient a little bit. So then I knew that I was like, well, what do I need to balance out in my life? I think I need to cut back on the amount of meetings I'm having because all I'm doing is giving in my meetings and I don't have time to create and I don't have time to, I just don't feel on top of my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I need time. So I told my team, hey guys, I'm not going to attend any meetings the third week of every month moving forward. And they didn't like it because they like having me in the meetings, they like being, but I was like, listen, and so the way I explained it to them was, it's not personal to you guys,
Mm-hmm.
but if you want me to be a better boss and if you want me to keep creating products that people want to buy, I need this space. And so I've taken that space for myself and I've learned how to say no to meetings. So that's just a concrete example of, this is when I know. I think human emotions are wonderful because they tell you, don't be scared of the negative emotions. They're telling you something, right? So that's
I
how
love
I
that.
know. That's where
Yeah.
I know how to create balance.
I think our body and our spirit tells us when something's off. I feel it. Like I know when I'm feeling stuck because I get the overwhelming feelings. I start getting irritable, just really tired because I take on a lot of energy because I'm constantly answering emails. I'm, doing stuff with my podcast. I also do readings, so I'm doing those things and I'm
Yeah.
a therapist, so I'm constantly in the healing realm where I'm like
Yes.
give, give, give. So if I don't spend time every single day doing something to pour into my cup, I feel it hard and
Yes.
fast. So it's like
Yes.
I have to take that break of, knowing like I have to implement the meditation. I got to implement that self-care in the morning. So what I'm trying to do lately is like from 7 o'clock to 10 a.m. That is my time. Don't touch my phone. Don't answer no calls. Don't answer the emails. Don't answer the notifications. Just leave it in another room and then I will get to it. It's not going anywhere. And so that's kind of like my new self-care ritual is not giving my energy access to the world yet. That can
Mm,
happen and that can wait, but I have to fill up my cup in order to have enough to give because otherwise I'm just giving from an empty cup. And that just
I like
that
it.
just doesn't work. It doesn't work for me.
Well, and on top of it, Chris, you're an empath, so
Mhm.
that's and a lot of us are empathetic, empath, or intuitive. We're sensitive, and so it's kind of comes at us double whammy.
Yes.
When you're around others and you're of service, that then that means you need to fill your cup even more. So I have a
Mhm.
question for you, if you don't
Oh,
mind.
yes, the tables are turning.
Yeah, well, just because I think it'd be really helpful for people to hear, like what are other things that you do to fill your cup that make you feel nourished?
Great question. I think for me, first and foremost, my daughter is my world, and so just having her around, doing fun things with her is something that I really try to implement as number one. But I love to dance too, so I do like a Tahitian style
Mm,
dancing, and for me, I like it because it gets the energy moving. It gets my energy out. Like I have to move my body. I'm very, stagnant with what I do. I'm constantly like doing admin stuff or, when I work out, I'm lifting weights. It's very like rigid type of movements.
mhm,
So when I'm dancing, especially with Tahitian dancing, it's a lot of hips. It's something that's like it forces your body to move. It forces the energy to get out.
mhm.
And I love doing skincare. Like I am big into that. I love doing any type of skincare. I love microneedling. I love going somewhere and getting a treatment done. So anything I can
Yes.
do for myself. And yeah, I really I like to be selfish. And I say that in a
Mm,
positive way
yeah.
because for me, when I travel, when I'm doing my beauty stuff, when I'm working out, those are things I do for myself. And
Mhm,
that is always going to be number one for me because if I
mhm.
don't do those things, I'm not going to be the best mom. I'm not going to have the energy for this podcast. I'm not going to have the energy to give to my clients. Now, there are some times where I struggle with that balance because I'm a perfectionist. I am a hardcore entrepreneur. So for me, I'm always trying to be creative. I'm
Fun.
always thinking of
Yeah.
new things to do. So much so that sometimes it's at my detriment because I have a hard time just doing one thing at a time. I
Mhm.
want to dive into everything and I want to dive in hard and fast. And
Mm,
sometimes it's good, but sometimes I've struggled with the balance of rest. I have a hard
yes.
time with that. So yeah, it's challenges, but those are the things that I try to implement. Great
Well,
question.
I think that what you said was when you were talking about dancing, I think when you feel stagnant and you feel stuck, moving is one of the best ways, like physically moving, to
Yes.
move the air around you is really powerful just to get more momentum. So sometimes if I'm feeling like, I remember when I was dating, after my divorce, and it was the first time I'd been dating 20 years, Grace, in
Hmm.
New York City.
Aw.
It was like so scary. But when you're waiting for a text, or you're just, you're anticipating something, whether it's from dating or it's a business text, whatever it is, I find, or you're feeling stuck about situation, I find the best thing to do is just move. So I remember I used to just walk, or I would organize a closet, or I would clean something, do laundry, and just get involved in the physical act of moving. And I love that you said
Mm.
dancing. I love dancing as well. So that, I think, energetically moves the air around you, and then
Yes.
moves something inside of you. And then magically a text would be there, or a business deal would come
Mm.
through, or I'm in a lifted mood and a problem has been solved. It's not magic. I think it's movement of energy.
Yeah, and it helps raise your vibration, and it helps even just getting the dopamine flowing and all the nice
Yes.
neurotransmitters we love from the brain that tell us good job and keep going. For you with your brand, where do you see the future of Savor Beauty going? What do you envision for it?
It's funny that you asked that. I was talking to my team about it today. It's really a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle of skincare, of self-care, of self-love. The self-care planner is for people to plan the times, because you and I have talked about so many times when you're working so much and you forget yourself. It's because you're planning your work, but you're not planning your self-care. Why not? You know,
Yes, bingo.
and, we're launching an SPF 50 product as well. So we're still very approaching skincare with as much science as possible, and with as much self care as possible. And I don't know, I want to also leave some magic in the air, because there's some beauty in the unknown of
Hmm.
what may come to be.
I love that. What advice would you give to young women? What advice would you give to your younger self?
Mm. I would say it's okay. It's going to be okay. And the most important thing is to follow what you authentically know is right for you, versus what your mom wants, what your friends want. And because that's actually, when you make decisions based on appearance, you create a self-imposed prison.
Oh, yes.
And when you decide to follow your authenticity over approval, that is true freedom.
Mm,
So
I love
that's what I
that.
would tell, because I lived a whole life on approval, on applause, and getting that standing ovation, in quotes, on accolades. But I think importantly, I had to make some tough decisions in my life that I never, like getting a divorce. Oh my gosh. I would have never done that, because my mom would have just been so disappointed in society, and in the Korean society, especially. You can't do that. But it led to so much more happiness for everybody. So follow your heart.
I love that. And you clearly put yourself first, and I can see the challenges, especially with, if you came from an upbringing that said you have to do this or you're expected to be a certain way. And I can relate in some ways. I didn't grow up with that cultural background, but growing up with a single mom who I did not have a good relationship with, I always felt like I had to prove to myself, not necessarily to other people, but that perfectionism had to come from me, because it's more of a trauma response. If I don't do this, I don't have any help. And so I have to do everything 100%. And I think for me, I needed to take that and just, know that sometimes it's okay to care for myself. I spent so much
Mhm.
time caring for other people that sometimes you have to put yourself first. And I love that your brand, and I truly mean this, because I don't say this lightly or with too many people, but your brand really surprises me, because it's not just about products. It's about spirituality, being the best version you can as a woman, your cultural background, how you grew up, what you saw, taking the things that were important to you, and really implementing it into your brand and rituals, and how women can do these things every day to improve their lives and to improve themselves and their self-image. So I think that's beautiful. And I cannot wait to see, where your journey leads you, where your
Oh,
brand goes. I can't
thank
wait
you
to
so
see what else
much.
is in the future for you. And I just thank you so much for your time and your energy and for coming on the show.
Thank you so That's such a beautiful compliment. I receive it with gratitude. And I will say it takes one to see one.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you, Angela.
Thank you.